this is a message about the plans we make and the way God says, nope, I have something better for you. So I've titled this message, My Plan, with a strike through it, God's Plan. Or God's plan is greater than my plan. With some maths. My brother has a maths degree. I feel like I should just chuck it in there, yeah. So I'll explain what I mean by I thought God had given me these plans. They made sense to me. They were along the lines of what I had wanted. I'm qualified to compose. I love it. And don't get me wrong, I still love it, and I would welcome it if it came my way again. But God had something better for me. I can say that now 3 years later because I'm on the other side of it. But it was not easy. It was not easy to go through this process. I was sad about it for a really long time. And I think we all went through levels of sadness in that year and subsequent years. And it took me a long time to come to terms with it. I went through the stages of grief over it. I'm just going to take a drink of water first before I move on. Denial. I thought, no, I'll get back on track in a few months and it'll be fine. Everything will be fine. Anger. I was angry that it wasn't happening the way I had envisioned it. Bargaining. Has anyone ever bargained with God? Just me? Well, I did. I was like, God, okay, I'll do this thing, and then we'll get back to that plan that we had, and everything will be okay. You can imagine the response. Depression. I'm not going to delve too far into that, but I was down about it. This plan that I had that was the start of everything I had wanted for years wasn't going to happen. And then finally, acceptance. I accepted that that plan wasn't as good as the one that God had for me. And this didn't happen all in one sitting. I went back and forth along that line. That's what happens. It doesn't just go boom, 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 and you're done. You go back and forth. But I accepted it in the end. I accepted it not because it wasn't happening and not because I didn't want it anymore. I accepted it because even though I couldn't see it, I knew God had something better for me. And I was actually seeing it. There were things I did during the last few years that I wouldn't have done otherwise, and I'm so grateful for them. Do I wish it hadn't taken everything else away? Yes, absolutely. But this is what happened, and there's nothing I or anyone else can do about it that will change it. My first point is trusting that God has a better plan. We all have plans. We have big plans, we have small plans, and sometimes those plans change, and it's frustrating. People in the Bible had plans, and I'm sure they were frustrated at times that their plan wasn't happening. They were human like us, don't forget. The Bible doesn't always talk about the fact that they get frustrated, but they did, for sure. Like, they're human. So take David, for example. He was the youngest son of a farmer. He was just going to be a farmer his whole life, and that would be it. And then one day, God intervened. God sent Samuel to find the new king of Israel. Now, God had already done that to Samuel. Go find Saul. And he found Saul, and Saul was unsuspecting of the plan that God had for him. Saul did all right for a while, 2 years, and then he got scared, and he didn't trust God anymore. He tried to do his own plan, and then this is why Samuel was sent to find the new king, to find David. David didn't plan on being the king. He didn't plan on having Jesus in his family line. But when God told him his plan, he trusted him. He had faith that God would protect him and that God's plan for him was far greater than his own. Another person in the Bible, Jonah. Jonah had a plan of what he wanted to do. God was like, here you go, this is what you need to do, go to Nineveh. What did Jonah do? He ran away. And then God was like, okay, all right. And then he got him there anyway. You know, God's plan, he'll make it work. You might have a plan that is simple and easy. It works to your advantage. It's what you're trained for, maybe. I have a music degree. I wanted to be a composer. That was my plan. I would finish my degree and then work in a studio and I would make my own music. I thought that was the plan because I could do it. It was easy and simple. I had mapped out what my life would look like and it looked good. It was filled with joy and love and happiness. It was the best I could do. But God can do better. He has another plan and is filled with more joy and more happiness than I can even imagine. Trusting God is really hard sometimes, especially when he's quiet. Trusting God in the last few years was really hard. But every time I felt down and I felt like I wasn't going anywhere and that this is the life I was dealt and nothing would change, because I did feel that. These are not just things and words that I'm saying now. I went through this. I felt those feelings. I felt like I was stuck and I couldn't do anything about it. But a little voice would pipe up and say, trust me. Jeremiah 29, verse 11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans for welfare and not for evil, and to give you a future and a hope. Not being scared of God's plan is the best thing you can do. Trusting God that this plan is better than what you can think of is the key. We don't trust God, it just falls apart, right? I'm sure you've been there where you think, I'm going right, I'm fine. And then something happens and God's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Get back on my path, right? When we trust God, it's not smooth sailing. But we have someone in our corner who can see further than we can, who isn't going to harm us, and is going to give us the future. My second point, getting the tools. God doesn't just say, this is the way, and plops you in the middle of it all on your own. He prepares you for it. He gives you the skills to be able to handle the storms and to be able to do the job he set before you. Let's talk about Simon and Andrew. Colin talked a little bit about the disciples last week, but we're going to get into it a little bit more. Simon and Andrew were fishermen. Presumably their father was a fisherman. Their grandfather was a fisherman. They presumably came from a long line of fishermen. This was the plan for their life. It was the plan they had and the plan their parents had. They were born to be fishermen. They were called to be fishermen, but it wasn't until they met Jesus that they knew the true purpose behind their jobs as fishermen. How many times did I say fishermen? I counted it, 7. So, Matthew 4, verse 18 to 22. I'll wait for it to come up. It's okay. Oh, Pat is very quick up there, I have to say. It's very good. All right. So this is Jesus. While walking by the Sea of Galilee, he saw 2 brothers, Simon, who is called Peter, and Andrew, his brother, casting a net into the sea, for they were fishermen. And he said to them, follow me, and I'll make you fishers of men. Immediately they left their nets and followed him. And going on from there, he saw 2 other brothers, James, the son of Zebedee, and John, his brother, in the boat with Zebedee, their father, mending their nets. He called them. Immediately they left their boat, and their father followed him. Then they followed him. Sorry. Same thing for James and John. They were raised to be fishermen. They were even with their father when Jesus called out to them. What must Zebedee been thinking? He was there mending the nets with his sons, and then his sons were like, bye. That. I'm not going to talk about Zebedee that much, but that would be a really interesting study on the parents of the disciples and how they felt about their children following Jesus. A lot of trust and faith there going. These men didn't know it, but God had been training them their whole lives. Jesus says, follow me, and I'll make you fishers of men. The same rules applied. I know very little about fishing. Very little about fishing. Never done it in my life. But from what I understand is that you throw the line out, you let it sit there, and then it starts moving, you get a nibble or something, and then you reel it in. It's pretty much that, right? So, but God knows what he's doing, right? Because that's how it works with making disciples. You get to know someone, you go out, you meet people, you get to know them, you throw Jesus into the water a little bit. Not too much, don't scare them off, just a tiny bit. And then they catch on, and you let God reel them in. Don't do it yourself, let God do it, right? And I'm assuming it's the same thing you do with nets. I don't know. Anyway, fishing. God was preparing Simon, Andrew, James, and John their whole lives to be fishers of men by making them fishermen. And once they were ready, he sent Jesus to get them, and without hesitation, they went. How insane is that? Imagine being Simon and Andrew that day. You wake up, you have some food, You and your brother grab the boat, you set out and you start your day of fishing. This is something you've been doing for a very, very long time. It's the same thing day in and day out. And then, this day, something is different. Maybe you feel it in the air. Maybe you wake up on the wrong side of the bed. Maybe the fish are doing weird stuff. And you see this guy by the sea. He's just walking along and he stops and he calls out to you. He says, "Follow me." Now, God had to be talking to Simon and Andrew, because if some random person walked up to me and said, "Hey, follow me and I'll make you fishers of men," I would run as far away from them as possible. That's just me. I feel like maybe everyone would do that. But they didn't. They left their nets without hesitation and followed Jesus. I know Jesus had just done some miracles, so it wasn't like out of the blue questions, but still, God had to be talking to them. There was a lot of trust going on in there. They left behind the plan they had and set their eyes on the new plan God had for them. I said at the beginning that I'm not sad anymore about the plan, my plan, not panning out, because I know God had a better one. And the reason I know He has a better one is because He's been preparing me for it for decades. I didn't know this until recently, but He was preparing me for His plan my whole life. He hit the accelerator the last few years, though. I started doing things I didn't know I could do, and I was good at them. I got better at the things I could do. There were things that I've been doing my whole life that I didn't realize were a part of the plan until really recently, like a few months ago. I'm sure there's things I don't know about yet that will contribute to the plan, and I know there's things I still need to learn to have the plan be fulfilled. There are things that you're going through now that are preparing you for the next step. There are things that you are learning about now that are preparing you. There are things that you've been doing your whole life that are preparing you for the plan He has. You may not know about the plan yet, but it's happening. I spent my whole life loving movies and TV shows. It's my passion. I play out scripts in my head. I create scenes in my head. I've done this my whole life. I don't remember a time I didn't do this. I didn't think it had a purpose for a really long time. It was quite frustrating growing up because I could remember a random fact about a random character in a show that no one had heard of, but I couldn't remember my 9 times tables. That's frustrating, right? Then after a while I thought, well, there's got to be a reason I retain all this information and not what everyone else thinks is important. But I didn't know what it was. I continued to do it though because I loved it. I love analysing a TV show and a scene and discovering new things about characters or a random prop in the background from the prop guys. Earlier in this message, I did 2 quotes from TV shows. And no one noticed. No one noticed because, Liz knows one of them. Pat might have heard, but I don't think he was paying attention at that point. Anyway, I love TV. In recent years, I've slowly discovered why I do these things, why I create scenes in my head. When I'm at my happiest, I write. I don't write novels, but I write scripts. I've actually written a few scripts for church, the kids' stories, the last few years of Christmas. I didn't realize I could actually do this, actually write, until a few years ago. Whenever I write, I feel so at peace, it's scary. The first time I felt that peace, I looked to God and I said, am I supposed to be feeling like this? Like, this is not normal. I didn't think I could feel that peaceful doing anything. I don't have any training in writing, but there are things that I've done in my life that have prepared me for it. I have a creative arts degree, so I know how that creative field works. I did comedy improv, so I know how to make up a scene. Even though I'm not doing those things now, I'm not really doing music. I mean, I do worship, but I'm not like actively doing music a lot, and I'm not doing improv anymore. They prepare me for the next step. Which brings me to my last point, stepping into His plan. We go back to Matthew 4. They immediately left their boats. It doesn't say they slowly put their stuff away and then went to Jesus. They immediately dropped their stuff and just went. They followed Jesus. They stepped into the unknown with Jesus and did what God had called them to do. The first step is hard. It's not something to take lightly because you're abandoning something you strive for. You're abandoning the thing that you've been working for. And it's terrifying. I don't know if anyone has quit their job here, But let me tell you, it's both terrifying and liberating at the same time. And that was my first step into God's plan. Last year, I quit my job, and I had nothing to walk into. It was scary, but I was trusting God and His plan, so I knew I was safe. So I'll go to the Word just for a little bit of backup, Sometimes you need that. You need to go to the Word, get some backup. So Joshua 1, verses 1 to 9. This is long. I'm going to drink some water before I say it. Joshua 1, verses 1 to 9. After the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord said to Joshua, the son of Nun, Moses' assistant, try and say that fast. Moses' assistant. It's very difficult. Too many S's. Moses, my servant, is dead. Now therefore arise, go over this Jordan, you and all this people, into the land that I am giving to them, to the people of Israel. Every place the sole of your foot will tread upon I have given to you, just as I promised to Moses. From the wilderness and this Lebanon, for as far as the great river, the river Euphrates, all the land of the Hittites, to the great sea toward the going down of the sun shall be your territory. No man shall be able to stand before you all the days of your life. Just as I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will not leave you or forsake you. Be strong and courageous, for you shall cause this people to inherit the land that I swore to their fathers to give them. Only be strong and very courageous, being careful to do according to all the law that Moses my servant commanded you. Do not turn from it to the right hand or to the left, that you may have good success wherever you go. This book of the law shall not depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do according to all that is written in it. For then you will make your way prosperous, and you will have good success. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be frightened, and do not be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. God tells Joshua 3 times to be strong, in just this section, to be strong and courageous. He knew that Joshua was going to walk into storms that he couldn't handle on his own, so he told him, do not be afraid. Stepping into God's plan is never going to be easy. It's basically the hardest thing you're ever going to do because the devil is going to try and stop you every step of the way. There will be times where you doubt the plan, where you think the other plan over there looks so much easier. Don't give in to it. It's just going to make it 10 times harder to get back on the right path. I know nobody here is perfect, so we're going to do it. We're going to look to our right hand or to our left, and we're going to get off the path. But we're not alone on our path. God is with us every step of the way. So the first step for me was to quit my job. The next step was to wait. Waiting is difficult. I'm sure we've all done that. But I still knew that God had something for me. I just needed to listen. So I did. I waited and waited more, and I listened, and I waited more, and I listened and I waited more. And then I heard something. And then I took the next step. This step was something I had wanted to do for a long time, but was too afraid to really say it out loud. And then when I finally did, I thought it would never happen. But God's making it happen. The next step for me was buying a plane ticket. I'm moving to London in June. This is the scariest thing I've ever done, but I've also never been more excited to do something in my life. And it doesn't mean I don't love it here and I'm not going to miss it, because I'm going to miss it so much not being here. But when God calls you to something, you can only put it off for so long. There have been so many times in the last few months that something has come up that would stop me or delay me. There are so many reasons to not go when I'm going. But I got to the point where I kept asking God, when was the right time? And I kept asking. And then He told me, but I was really scared. And I was putting it off. And then one day I was praying, and it just hit me in the face. Has God ever done that to you? He just whacks you in the head with it. And you're like, okay, I got it, sure. I knew that if I kept putting it off, it was just never going to happen. I was getting in my own way. I had to just follow Him. I had to do it. This path feels different. The other plan I had 3 years ago, it felt right in a human way, if that makes sense. It was easy and simple and something I could achieve on my own. But this one, I can't do this on my own. It takes every bit of courage I have to walk this path, but it feels so clear and good. There are hurdles every day. I had a hurdle the other day. But they don't deter me. I feel God's hand on my shoulder, keeping my path straight. I have ideas about what I think it's going to look like, and maybe that will happen. But I know anything that I can come up with is nowhere near as good as the thing that God has. You might be sitting there thinking, God doesn't have a plan for me. Or you might feel stuck where you are right now. I promise you're not stuck. We make ourselves stuck. I thought I was stuck. But I had to be fearless and put all my faith in God to get out. God has a plan for you. You just need to be willing to give everything you have to it. If you're sitting there thinking, I know God has a plan, but I'm not sure what it is, I encourage you to go home, put some worship music on, pray, walk, whatever it is you get to be in God's presence, and then sit in it. It might take a while. It might take days of repeatedly doing this. But sit in it with God and ask. He will start showing you. For me, he started showing me the tools he had given me. I don't know what it's going to look like for you, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be amazing because God's amazing, right? If you're sitting there and you've taken the steps for God's plan, I encourage you to keep looking forward. Keep walking through the storms. Do not get tripped up by the hurdles. Do not be afraid. I also encourage you to talk to people about it. I know for me, it helped me get on God's plan because I heard and saw other people do it. Which is why I'm standing here telling this story, which is why I'm always willing to tell my story, because I don't know who it's going to help, but know it's going to help somebody, even if that's just me. So the points were, trusting that God has a better plan. Facts. His plan is better than anything you can come up with on your own. Just is. It might look similar to your plan or completely different, but his plan is still better. His plan will get you to the future. Getting the tools. God has been providing you the tools for his plan your whole life. You just need to be listening. Think about the things that maybe don't make sense in your life. They might be the things that God's preparing you for. Like, they might be the steps. And lastly, stepping into his plan, the hardest of all. Taking the steps, keeping your head and your heart focused and staying on the path he has set for you. I didn't really get into it too much, but listening for the right time to take the next step is really important as well. Trusting in God will keep you on the path. Through every part of this, the most important thing to remember is God loves you. He knows you better than you know yourself. He will not harm you and will not put you on a path that you can't handle. Liz, if you want to come up and play. Last week we sang the song No Other Name. And I was struck by the chorus. Lift up our eyes, see the King has come. Light of the world reaching out for us. Seated on high, the undefeated one, mountains bow down as we lift him up. Jesus is reaching out to us and asking us to follow him, to walk the path that God has for us. He is undefeated and he is on our team. What better odds can you have? Today we sang the song, I'll Just Say Yes, which is basically my message summed up into a song. Should have just done that, really. If we just say yes to God, there is peace. And if you've never felt that kind of peace, I hope you do one day, because it's indescribable. I can't describe how peaceful it is. We might not be able to see that plan or understand it, but if we trust him, if we keep our eyes set on him, we will have the answer and we will have a future and a hope. I really hope that this message is talking to somebody out there today. And that if you're sitting there and you're struggling and in your life right now, you're feeling stuck, that you just look to God and you go, God, I trust you. God, I love you. Thank you, God. Because that's all he wants. He wants us to have faith. Faith as small as a mustard seed can move a mountain. So faith is smaller than mustard seed can do anything, right? Let's pray.